Welcome to another AriesPointProject video. My name is Aaron Savage. Today is May 8th, 2022, and I'm feeling it. Past few days, weeks, months, years, life. Every moment led me to this moment. And that's kind of how I've always seen things. When you pay attention to those distinctions and the contrasts and the patterns that come up, you start to see the cycles naturally. And when you start to see the cycles, you start to realize the contrast and the distinction is internal. We are programmed in a way at a very young age into certain dynamics, and those energies play out in our relationships, both to ourselves and to others, until we cultivate the spirit and learn to accept and release. Life is about renewal, release, growing. And when you're in that mode of being, you start to see different languages emerge to give meaning to old words. And so I want to use the language of astrology to describe the alchemical process of life, the theosis, through the dynamics, that we experience. And I'm feeling it right now. This eclipse tunnel we're in, heading into the lunar eclipse in Scorpio on the 16th of May, is pretty heavy for me. It's my first house. And life is always about transformation. I don't know how many lives I've lived in one life. I look at nothing as being wasted time, wasted effort. All mistakes are part of a process, part of cultivation. And it takes a while before you can accept that. And so power dynamics and standing in one's power is something I've been learning to do my whole life, because in the past it always hasn't been easy. It's been a process of playing victim and tyrant. A lot of times when we are in life and we're coming to terms with our own idiosyncrasies, the things that are holding us back, we learn that by standing or kneeling in our own power, we're holding others down. And when we stand, they stand with us. And it isn't easy to do, especially when you're in the throes of agony or you're feeling things deeply. So I've always taken a micro to macro approach, very subjective, but tuned into the objectification as an expression of myself through my relations with other people. And I have Mercury and Chiron on my DC. So, those dynamics have been heavy in my life. You begin to learn, the enemy within, the war within, reflects enemies in the war without. And you start to come to grips with your limitations, as in self-imposed. But there's no shame in that. That's the process of life. When I was young, I went through a lot of stress. There was a lot of abuse. I had a lot of sadistic adults who were teaching me certain things. It took a long time to understand the merits of those teachings, the value in those teachings. And luck is part of it. coming to terms and coming to grips with these things took a long time. It took my expression in this world to slow me down, to wind me down so that I could process it adequately and digest it. And I'm still doing that, you know, it's a lifelong process. You know, contrast is a key thing in my life. I see distinctions. My family was beautiful, amazing, crazy. And the outside world represented the opposite to me. And because I didn't like feeling like a victim, that's what propelled me and pushed me out into this world to challenge myself, to push myself into things that weren't comfortable. That's why I'm doing this now, because I don't like to do it. But it's the process, it's the evolution of the process. And so the old loops of worthiness, power, ability, does it actually matter? Does anything matter, really? The apathy, the hubris, all these things, you know, they come up through the shadows to enlighten us to the fact that we're changing. This is Kali in our lives, you know. Sometimes it hits us from the outside, sometimes it's a deep-rooted thing that's blooming within and it's pushing you out to express. And as you know, energy is never destroyed, it just transforms, and that's what we are. We're cultivating spirit and life. And so this eclipse tunnel we're in, it's asking us, what do we release? What do we renew from our past? How do we reframe that if we don't look at it? You know, and I've done a lot of shadow work, and I think life is shadow work. I don't think you necessarily need to sit down and cry all day or feel down for weeks on end about shoulda, coulda, woulda. I think you have to accept that you have the power to heal yourself, and in time the process comes to meet you. And you can't put life on hold while you're doing that. You still have to move forward, you still have to pay the bills, you still have to be reciprocal of those people in your life and those situations you're in. You have to handle them. And doing it with integrity and doing it with authenticity and an honest curiosity. That yes, you are ignorant, you make mistakes. Sometimes we hurt others, sometimes they hurt us, but in the end, what we're cultivating is spirit. And it is the friction of life that shows us the contrast, divide, and how we navigate through that. So what part of the ego within you needs to die? What's dying right now, you know? Because we all know that death is an illusion. It's part of the Maya we're in. The truths you held when you were a child, some of them may still be true, but the depth and the richness of what it is has grown into something new. And so when you're feeling the emotions, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling the trapped feelings, knowing that there's a release or something that has to be confronted, it can be very stressful. And it takes your attention. And that is a challenge for a lot of us. Can we be present in the moment? Oftentimes things we're feeling, those bottleneck energies where you're being squeezed through a process, through experiences. It's very hard to get your bearings and see objectively. So in those times, you just have to be gentle with yourself. You have to flow and swim when you can, you know. So the past, it laid the firmament. It enriched the soil from which you bloom. And we're heading into a blooming time right now. So you're bringing forward all the negatives and you're coalescing it into the nutrients, into the actual elements that you can use to build the future, to build yourself, to cultivate your spirit. So assess, your values, how they limited and how they raised you up. Allow them to pass and fade away, and that which you release, if it's worthy, if it's actually part of your building blocks for the future, part of your spirit, it will come back to you in a new way. So, just think in terms of life as a process. There's no wasted time. If you feel like you're already dead, then die anew. Let those emotions fade away. Feel through them. Pain is something that we all feel, but the more we feel it, the less afraid and the less it affects us. Schedules, think if you're trapped in the mind, schedules are good. Try and carve out some time each day to do something you enjoy to do. Remind yourself that it isn't always down, it isn't always gloomy out, rainy. That way when the sun's out, you can enjoy it. Well, that's all I wanted to say, so thanks for listening and have a good day.